The content you are about to watch contains disturbing content and is created for educational purposes. Viewer discretion is advised. What started as a beautiful marriage ended in 3 months with a gruesome scene in the bathroom of an old wooden house in the woods. Anggy Diaz, the wife of Jared Dicus, was found decapitated with multiple stab wounds lying on the bathroom floor. Her body was discovered hours later by her father-in-law, Jared Dicus. When the police arrived, the scene was so horrific and nauseating that they found it difficult to put into words. What was the motive behind such a gruesome murder? Before we continue, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. If you are just discovering this channel, imagine what you've missed. Anggy Diaz and Jared Dicus lived on Jared's father's property, a small wooden house at the back of the main home. The couple had been married for about 3 months and was visibly in love. They posted pictures of themselves on social media with heart-melting captions. All was well in paradise, or so it seemed, until the night of January 11th, 2023. Angie's father-in-law had gone over to the wooden house in the backyard to check on Anggy. He thought she needed a bit of company, but when he got there, he discovered a most alarming scene, one that made him call the police immediately. Police arrived with paramedics in no time and came face to face with one of the most heart-wrenching sights they'd ever seen. The story unfolds in the rural parts of Magnolia, Texas. The police had just arrived on the Dicus family's property, where Lynn and Rodney Dicus lived, only meters away from their 2 sons, Wayne and Jared Dicus. Wayne, the older brother, was 25 years old, while Jared, the younger, was only 21. The family was well known, as it wasn't their first encounter with the police. The police had first tried to look inside the wooden house, but when one of the paramedics sighted blood on the floor and a body that was missing its head, he slowly backed away in order not to contaminate the crime scene. This wasn't a call for help. This was a homicide. The paramedics reported seeing a body with multiple stab wounds on the back, with its head lying inside the bathtub. The room was littered with blood stains, clothes, cigarettes, and just a few meters away lay the murder weapon. It was a stainless steel knife with blood all over the handle. The police began questioning everyone they found at the crime scene. Jared was taken into police custody, as he was naturally the first suspect. Lynn, in between tears, gave a statement, saying that her son Jared had been acting strangely for some time. When investigators questioned Wayne, Jared's older brother, he didn't know much about Anggy, only that she worked at a supermarket called Chepe's. At this time, Jared was sitting in the back of one of the police vehicles in handcuffs. Some of the officers knew the Dicus family well, and had even arrested Wayne in the past for drug use and misdemeanors. So when they heard of a DOA call, they assumed it might be concerning Wayne, but this time it was Jared. Jared James Dicus was born in 2001 and was raised in Houston, Texas. He was the responsible one of the 2 brothers. He had met Anggy for the first time at Chepe's, where she worked, and they both hit it off. Anggy was exactly the same age as Jared and grew up in Nicaragua. She was raised by a single mother and studied accounting at a university in Nicaragua. Anggy lived with an adoptive mother in Nicaragua, while her biological mother lived and worked in the U.S. When Angie's adoptive mother fell terminally ill, she moved to the U.S. to reunite with her biological mother, but as an undocumented immigrant. Anggy got a job at the Chepe's meat market while also working as a personal trainer. She had worked on improving her fitness, achieving a significant milestone, which gave her the courage to become a trainer. When she met Jared, who formerly played varsity football and also loved to work out, they connected instantly and started dating. They posted lots of pictures on social media, portraying a perfect relationship. The 2 decided to get married in October 2022. However, Anggy had a past that only her closest friend knew. She had been dating a man called Jose, and even had made plans to get married to him. But when Jose began to show less care and concern, Anggy decided to call the whole thing off. That was when she met Jared. They had been talking for a while, and he often brought her gifts and roses. Anggy lived in Waller at that time, while her mother lived in Houston. Strangely, Anggy never told her mother that she was getting married to Jared. The wedding was also a decision that was made to secure her legal status in the U.S., as that was still a great concern. Even though it seemed rushed, the couple had to get married to make sure she could stay in the country where she had already built a somewhat stable life. When Anggy introduced Jared to her friends, who mostly spoke Spanish, it was a bit awkward. Jared couldn't understand most of what they were saying, and even though Anggy did the translation most of the time, He would become irritated and walk away without any warning. After Anggy and Jared got married, her friends noticed something strange. She had become a bit withdrawn and seemed increasingly unhappy. She was nervous, even at her workplace, and everyone knew something had changed, even her boss. A day before the murder, Anggy came to work at around 1:30 p.m. She seemed very off. She had a bruise on her shoulder. Erica, a co-worker at Shepis, asked her what was wrong. They were close and shared personal information about each other's lives, so she was someone Anggy trusted. Anggy told Erica that she wanted to separate from Jared, and she would likely never get married again. According to a co-worker's testimony, Jared had previously assaulted Anggy because she had gone out with her aunt. Anggy told Jared that she wasn't going to continue living like this. She wanted out. That was where everything went sideways. Jared, who had been struggling with alcohol and had been arrested earlier in 2023, still behaved erratically after his release. Anggy had asked Jared's parents if Jared could sleep in the main building, as she didn't want him sleeping in the same house as her. It was clear that something was very wrong. On January 8, 2023, Jared had called the Waller County Police, reporting that he had used drugs and wanted help. Paramedics were immediately sent to 206 Ocala Boulevard. Jared had been using meth, the same drug his older brother had been on. This may have been the problem with Jared and Angie's relationship, because what followed was far darker than anyone could have ever imagined. On the 11th of January, Jared drove back from work at around 4 a.m. He went straight to the wooden house at the back of his parents' property where he and Anggy lived. He remained inside until noon. He then decided to go to the main house where his parents lived to spend some time. His parents instantly noticed that something had gone wrong. Jared also had a phone that kept ringing. His parents knew that this wasn't Jared's phone. They questioned him about the phone, and when they realized it was Angie's phone, they asked what had happened. Jared lay on the floor and began to sob. It was clear that something terrible must have happened. Rodney and Lynn Dicus moved swiftly to the wooden house at the back to check on Anggy. What they saw was a scene from a nightmare. Lynn broke down in tears while Rodney called the police. As the case slowly unraveled, it became clear that Anggy had planned to leave Jared because he was controlling and wanted to isolate her for himself. When he learned of her plan, he killed her instantly. During interrogation, Jared used his meth use as an excuse for his loss of control. He claimed to have only used the drug once. As the interrogation went on, he tried to evade questions by maintaining silence and answering only when he wanted. At some point, he even claimed he didn't kill Anggy, and later changed his statement, saying that a voice told him to do it. But something took control of him, and whatever that entity was, it wasn't him. He eventually admitted to cutting her head off. He began to open up a bit more. According to his statement, he arrived very late that day, in the early hours, and Anggy was awake. They had a big argument. He had been physical with Anggy in previous fights, so for that reason, Anggy picked up a kitchen knife for protection. It was supposed to scare him away from her, but that night, things went very differently. He claimed that he disarmed her and stabbed her several times before decapitating her. He also claimed that the unknown voice told him to kill himself, but he was unable to go through with it. As the interview came to an end, he was overwhelmed with guilt and seemed to be very disturbed. This was confusing because earlier that day, after the murder, he was caught on CCTV walking into Shepis Meat Market, where he went to shoplift a beer and exited as if nothing had happened. He drank the beer in the parking lot and then drove back home. During his prosecution, Jared's mental condition became an opportunity, as the defense argued that he was unstable and wasn't fit to be tried. However, an evaluation of his mental health concluded that he was capable of standing trial. He had tested positive for marijuana and cocaine and claimed that the drugs contributed to his actions, but he never tested positive for meth, which was the drug he mentioned in his confessions. Jared pleaded guilty to the murder of his wife, Anggy. In August 2024, he was sentenced to 40 years in prison without the possibility of parole. Anggy had decided to marry Jared to secure her place in the U.S. and bring stability into her life. Little did she know that her life would be cut short by someone she once loved. Memorials were held in her name, and many would remember her for her calmness, determination, and positivity. She was 21 when she was murdered. What do you think about this case? Let us know in the comments. Be sure to like and subscribe, and if you want more exclusive crime stories, click on these videos.